Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Books and Mortar podcast with me, your host, Razia, where we talk about the books that build up. So for this episode, I have a very nice, light-hearted book called Lies and Weddings by Kwan. If you don't recognize the name, he's the guy who wrote Crazy Rich Asians, okay? And while I haven't read that book, I've watched the movie, and I thought that this type of book might be perfect, actually, for holiday reading. I was right. I don't know if this one will be adapted for the screen, this particular one, but it was okay as far as stories go. So here's the synopsis on the back of the book. A forbidden affair erupts dramatically amid a decadent Hawaiian wedding in this hilarious, sophisticated, and thrillingly plotted story of love, money, murder, sex, and the lies we tell about them all. Rufus Leung Gresham, future Earl of Greshambury and a son of former Hong Kong supermodel, has a problem. His family fortune, the legendary Gresham Trust, has been depleted by decades of profligate spending. While magazine covers and Instagram stories display impeccably designed manners and shiny new yachts, the secret reality holds nothing more than a gargantuan mountain of debt. The only solution put forth by Rufus' scheming mother is for Rufus to seduce a woman with money, thereby securing the family's precarious financial future. Should he marry Céline de Cossy, a French hotel heiress with honey blonde tresses and a royal bloodline? Should he pursue Martha Dung, the tattooed venture capital genius who passes out billions like lollipops? Or should he follow his heart, betray his family, squander his legacy, and finally confess his love to the literal girl next door, the humble daughter of a doctor, Eden Tong? When the Gresham family descends on the big island of Hawaii to host a veritable who's who of sultans, barons, and oligarchs for the wedding of the decade, Rufus must merely flex his famous abs to bewitch the heiress of his choice. But instead, a hot mic exposes a secret tryst, a volcanic eruption burns through the nuptials, and the Gresham family's plans and their reputation go up in flames. Can the once great earldom rise from the ashes, or will a secret tragedy hidden for 2 decades reveal a shocking twist, spanning the black sand beaches of Hawaii, the red city of Marrakesh, the Los Angeles bachelor pad of a billionaire playboy, and the inner sanctum of England's oldest family estate? Lies and Weddings reveals an enthralling family saga that is as scandalous and satirical as it is full of heart. That's quite the synopsis, actually. It tells you quite a bit right there. So the story follows the lives of the Gresham family. They're an aristocratic family in England. Francis, the Earl, his Chinese wife, Countess Arabella, and their 3 children, Augusta, Beatrice, and Viscount Rufus. So Beatrice is also called B, that's her nickname, except by her mother, who calls her Beatrice, because she's like that. Okay, so when Arabella married Francis, she was not accepted by the English, in other words, white society. So she decided that she would make herself stand out by becoming the most stylish lady ever. From her clothes to her home decor, she was just unique. And she wants all of her children to marry up so that they can solidify their position in society. So some of the other characters call her an Asian who hates other Asians. I think she's called us like 3 or 4 times in the book. And she is. She is an Asian who hates other Asians. And they say that's why she married a white man, right? To have white children. And now she wants even whiter grandchildren. And they don't seem to be wrong. So additionally, we have young Eden Tong, who's a doctor, and she lives on the Gresham estate with her father, Dr. Thomas Tong, who serves as the Gresham's family doctor. So Eden grew up with the Greshams, but as she says, she was aware of her place in their lives. She was invited for sleepovers, but not international trips. Like family, but she wasn't family. Although Beatrice does seem pretty loyal to her, but I imagine even that loyalty would have its limits. So the story opens with a murder that took place at least 18 years before the events of this book. A man named Henry Tong strikes it lucky at a casino in Macau, and he goes off to propose to his girlfriend. And when he pops the question at an exclusive club with all of his friends around, one of them gets seriously angry and lunges at him, knocking him over, and he falls over the balcony and he's impaled by a crystal centerpiece. Brutal, but beautiful. So the reason he's lunged at is because this guy's sister, Mary Gow, is actually pregnant with Henry's baby at the time. Henry, it turns out, was a bit of an ass. So fast forward to present day now, Augusta, or Augie Gresham, is getting married to Prince Maximilian of Lichtenberg. So her mother is super thrilled. They're getting married in Hawaii at a resort that Arabella designed. And just before the wedding, there's a volcanic fissure that opens up like right in the middle of the garden where the ceremony is supposed to be and spews some lava. So why would you build a resort on an island with an active volcano? So obviously this puts like a bit of a damper on the event, and Countess Arabella has to be medicated. So of course anyone who is anyone is going to be at this wedding, and even then you have to be someone. The Gresham family is what they called old money, so that means something different to new money. Although Arabella doesn't come from such wealth in Hong Kong. Augie and her younger sister Beatrice have like a jam-packed schedule of photo shoots for Vanity Fair, Bazaar and Vogue in the week before the wedding, because otherwise why do you even get dressed if no one's going to photograph you? So all set up by momager, of course, Arabella Leung Gresham. So just to give you an idea of what kind of mother she is, she sends this outfit to Rufus along with this note. So it reads, "The Countess would like you to wear this beige linen Margaret Howell suit tonight. She says to please tuck the shirt in and wear the outfit with the duree belt and George Cleverley loafers provided. Please do not substitute with your own shoes. And please use the mouthwash provided. And please shave. And please clean under your fingernails and trim your nose hairs. People will notice." So she's very, very concerned about appearances and also the opinion of other people. And this is actually pretty tame for her, right? If you read the book, you'll realize. So after Augie, Rufus is the one who has to get married. And of course, obviously, he is super handsome and he's the most eligible bachelor. And obviously, he's not really interested in taking over the title as Earl, right? And inheriting the land and the people that go with it. He's more content in his $5 million surf shack in Hawaii, creating art pieces and taking photos. Being a hippie is expensive. So naturally, Arabella uses Augie's wedding as an opportunity to set Rufus up with someone she feels is a suitable match. And this is Lady Celine de Courcy. So please forgive my pronunciation. She's French and yeah. And this is why she's a suitable match, right? She's the daughter of Gaspard and Olympia de Courcy. She was born in the right hospital, grew up in the right arrondissement, and went to the right schools, speaks the right languages, and understands innately what it means to be the manor born. And this is according to Countess Arabella, of course. The idea is that Rufus will think that he's being set up with some other Thai princess he will reject on principle, when in actual fact he's being set up with Celine. So they bring in another young man, a Persian named Freddie Farman Farmehian. I mean, to keep that surname straight in my head, when I was reading the book, it's like I had to really look at his surname and make sure that I'm saying it properly, because it was just F's and M's and A's and I's everywhere. But this guy, Freddie, is smitten with Celine, right? And he's invited in to act as competition. Because, of course, then Rufus would have to show his male superiority and make sure that Celine falls for him instead of Freddie. Genius, right? So this is Eden and B's job, and actually it fails spectacularly, right? So while Celine is actually smitten with him, Rufus is not interested in her at all. In fact, he seems to have his eye on a certain young doctor, which is also a bit weird because they grew up like siblings, right? Anyway, the Countess is not going to be happy about this. Then, to top it off, at the actual wedding, Augie and Max put on a little skit that results in her wearing an organic white slip dress made of unbleached hemp. Yeah. Which is what she wanted in the first place. But hell would freeze over before Arabella would allow it. So this is how the aftermath went between mother and daughter. "Why do you hate me so much?" Arabella glared icily at her daughter. "I don't hate you. Why would you? How dare you? How dare you disgrace me, disgrace your father, disgrace all your Gresham and Leung ancestors, and more importantly, disgrace yourself like this? I don't understand what you mean. You performed a striptease at your own wedding. Everyone loved it, mother. Everyone was laughing. They were not laughing with you. They were laughing at you. It was Maxie's idea. He thought it would be wicked fun if we both..." Arabella massaged her temples like she was having a migraine attack. Don't you see that Maxie can flash his pale white buttocks at the whole world and everyone will laugh? Maxi can get away with anything because he is Prince Maximilian zu Lichtenberg. You, on the other hand, are nothing more than an earl's daughter, but you have succeeded, with my help, I might add, in accomplishing the impossible. Despite all your inadequacies, you have managed to marry into his illustrious clan, and every single member of that clan, which, as you know, includes most of the crowned and uncrowned heads of Europe, now think that their darling Prince Maxi has married a harlot. I am not a harlot. After that stunt you pulled, you're nothing more than a low-class stripper. You know better than one of those wan chai guy. Augie's nostrils flared and she had reached the last straw with her mother. I'm so tired of you projecting all your issues onto me. Issues? What issues? Whenever you talk about trashy people, why must they always be Chinese? Why are they never European or royal? Have you seen how tacky some of Maxi's Norwegian cousins are? You know what you are? You're a self-loathing Asian. Arabella laughed dramatically. How is it self-loathing for a mother to want to instill some dignity and common sense into her daughter? It is precisely because you are half Asian that you must always present yourself in the best manner. You must be the prettiest, smartest, most charming woman in every room you enter, and you must always behave impeccably. That's what I've been trying to impress into your numb little skull all your life, but you have fought me every step of the way. All I ever wanted was for you to have an intimate, elegant, history-making wedding that point of view and all our would chronicle for posterity and everyone would remember for the rest of their lives. I'm just helping you to be looked upon favorably as you begin your new life in a family that will not be as kind to you as your blood family. So yes, Arabella has some serious issues and her kids can't understand her. Naturally, obviously, because they didn't experience the kind of racism that she did. So they don't understand where her paranoia and her insecurities come from. So Arabella then runs into the room next door because she thinks she's having a stroke again. And she finds a positive pregnancy test in the bin. And this happens to be Eden's room. So yikes, more drama. She also thinks, based on what she's heard about the week, that the father is Freddie Farman Farmahian. She also happens to mention this to Rufus at the wedding reception. And he goes berserk, like cornering Eden and confessing his love to her over a hot mic. Which means a mic that's on, right, so that everyone can hear what he's saying. He was hooked up because he was supposed to be giving a toast at the time when he ran off. And then everyone heard him confessing his love to Eden and his disdain of Celine. Awkward. So Eden was really surprised by his outburst. And when he kisses her, she's like more surprised. But she doesn't stop it, yeah. Until they find, like, they're interrupted by one of the staff yelling that everyone can hear Rufus and that he must please stop talking. And this is when a new lava fissure opens up and lava begins spewing down the volcano and everyone has to be evacuated. Phew, okay. So while all of this is going on, Dr. Thomas Tong, who's really good friends with Earl Francis, has a drink with him and a catch-up with his old friend. And he realizes that the Earl is totally broke. Thomas suggests that he asks his future in-laws for a loan, which he actually does, by the way. And he finds out that they're totally skint too. Their eldest son is like addicted to some high-class drugs, and his rehab has cost a fortune at 350,000 euros a month for rehab, right? And he stayed there for 3 months. Brilliant. I don't think that he's like in remission. He's relapsed already. They were, in fact, actually thrilled that their son was getting married to Augie because they thought that he would be taken care of by her family. The irony. And this happens after the second fissure opens and the resort is like completely obliterated. It's as though it was never there. Now, you may be thinking, like I was, that at least the insurance would pay them outright for the destruction of the hotel. But you, like me, would be very wrong. Because what ridiculous insurance company would insure a building that is built on an island with an active volcano? So Earl Francis goes back to Thomas and he asks if he can hit his old friend and patient up again, who has already extended Francis several lines of credit. Not just that, this particular man, who's a friend of Thomas's, Renee Tan, has been on his deathbed for like the last 4 years now. So Thomas hesitates, but he agrees. The only issue is that the only thing Francis has left as collateral is Gresham Manor, the house. Renee Tan was born in Hong Kong, but he grew up in the Philippines apparently, and he's worth like 90 billion American dollars. I can't even fathom how much money that is. And he has a son named Louis Philippe, who's a 23-year-old playboy who's into alcohol, drugs, gambling, women, and pretty much anything else you can think of. He overdosed for the first time when he was 14, and Renee has been trying to get Thomas to help him with his addiction, but he hasn't been able to. And Thomas actually even feels bad that he hasn't. Needless to say, Louis has a fraught relationship with his father. Never having had a mother growing up, he was foisted from nanny to nanny in different cities while his father was busy with his new girlfriend of the month. So while he had all of the money and privilege in the world, all Louis actually wanted and needed was some love and attention. Stuff money can't buy, yeah. So Renee hears Thomas out about the new loan to Francis, and while he doesn't really want to, he agrees, taking the manor as collateral. If he calls in these debts, I actually don't know what Francis would do. They'd be homeless. So when Arabella finally finds out about the financial status of the Greshams, she's shocked at the extent of the issue, and she's also really angry that Francis never told her how bad it was. So she calls up her sister-in-law, Rosina, who tells her that now all of the Gresham family hopes lay on the shoulders of her little son, Rufus. Just as a side note, right, I was really surprised at this guy's name. So you have Augusta and Beatrice that are like such regal names, right? These are names that you would find in a royal family. And then you get Rufus. Is he named after like somebody's family dog or something? I didn't understand where this name came from, but anyway. So Rufus has to make a good marriage so that his wife can bail his family out of their debt. She proposes a young lady named Martha Dung, who's a very successful venture capitalist. But Arabella isn't thrilled because Martha is Asian, but like her vast fortune really helps. So to get the ball rolling, Rosina abducts Rufus, who's on his way to London, and she reroutes him to Morocco to accompany her to the wedding of a friend where Martha Dung happens to be in attendance. So just so you have an idea of the kind of people his aunt is friends with, for the wedding ceremony, all of the guests were put into hot air balloons, right, with a couple in the middle, and then they exchanged their vows with all of the other guests watching via live feed on a tablet on each of their hot air balloons. This is incredible. And then, Rufus doesn't even... Okay, he does bat an eyelid because he's like, this is a really great idea. But yeah, this is like, the level of wealth that they hang out with. So everyone at this wedding is trying to get someone to invest in their new idea. There's a lot of new money at this wedding. So Rufus meets Martha, and they actually get along quite well. And then Rosina tells him that he's actually meant to make her fall in love with him and get her to marry him so that she can save the family from financial ruin. And you can imagine that this doesn't go down well with Rufus. He feels a bit grossed out by the whole idea. And let's face it, he's being pumped out, right? But I think all three of them would be, and the experience actually takes him back to some childhood memories of his mother, and they're not the best memories. So it goes like this. He was suddenly transported back to Greshambury Hall, age 9, and perched on a stool in his bathroom as a stylist slathered a big blob of mousse onto his head. Rufus grimaced as the woman pointed the hairdryer right into his face, almost burning his forehead as she mussed up his hair. Arabella entered in a stunning tartan Vivienne Westwood ball gown, ready to be photographed by Nick Knight for Dazed and Confused magazine. She assessed her son, who was going to be a prop in one of the fashion shots. There, much better. He just needed a bit of texture, ma'am. He inherited my Chinese hair. It's always been too straight and too black. I wish he had the curly, luscious locks of his sisters. Are you kidding? I'd kill for hair like his. It's divine, the stylist cooed. You think you want straight hair, but I promise you don't. Now, can we put a bit of makeup on him? Maybe blue lipstick and a little glitter eyeshadow? Something to make him look a little cooler next to me. Absolutely, ma'am. We'll transform him into a mini Malcolm McLaren. Rufus sat on his stool, not daring to move an inch, but absorbing every word. As long as he could remember, his mother had always fussed over the way he looked. It was as if she disapproved of his appearance. His shock of black hair was never quite right. His eyes, even though they were thankfully not slitty, his mother's words, were spaced too far apart. His chin was too sharp and his nose was all wrong. Where did that nose come from? It's neither Chinese nor English, she would say as she paraded him in front of one plastic surgeon after another, as each one tried to convince her that he was too young for rhinoplasty, and if she would simply be patient, he would grow into his nose. Not content, she would fixate on his physique, badgering his endocrinologist about the fact that he wasn't growing fast enough. By the time he turned 15, everything began to change. He grew over a foot in 1 year, his hair became denser and wavier, and his once awkward features, that angular chin, deep-set eyes, and incongruously long nose coalesced into what could only be described as an accident of smoldering beauty, just as his scrawny physique filled out like a magnificent kuros. When he was 16, Tattle took its infamous picture blowing up his world overnight. Suddenly, it seemed like everyone around him started acting strangely. He would come home to find his closets bursting with new clothes sent by designers whose names he couldn't pronounce, and Arabella began policing his appearance in an entirely new way. Rufus, don't cut your hair. I want it to get longer, and then I'll take you to Sam's to get it cut exactly like Takeshi in Fallen Angels. Rufus, why don't you wear those asymmetric trousers that Yoji sent for the fundraiser at Qualino's? You look so cute in them. Rufus, you're coming to the opening at the Tate Modern, and I want you to put on that sheer top with the jeans Gautier sent over. Mom, those jeans are completely ripped at the crotch. I can't wear them. Just wear those D2 briefs underneath, and it will look fab peeking through. Mom, I don't think you want me to be seen in public in those D2 briefs. They're kind of bulging. Silly boy, that's the whole point. He couldn't fathom what she meant by that, and he was baffled by all the fuss. On the inside, he felt like the same Rufus, but obviously he could see that his appearance had changed, and this in turn changed how every single person treated him. That's a very weird thing for a mother to say to her son, but okay, right? Like, to want to dress him that way, it's a bit much. So the irony of this, though, is that it's exactly what Arabella went through. She always looked awkward growing up, but eventually she blossomed and she became a supermodel. And this is like really extreme behavior, but it's not unheard of, right? I imagine that the Kardashians maybe went through something similar. There's also like a lot of kid influencers out there whose mothers, like, no doubt obsess about them the way Arabella does over Rufus. So anyway, he actually tells Martha what he's supposed to be doing, that he's supposed to be seducing her so that she would marry him, and that she would bail his family out of debt. And they actually bond over it and they become good friends. She's quite cool. I do think that he could have gotten her to marry him if he wanted, but Rufus isn't that guy. She saw the photo that was referenced here, that was published in Tattle. And apparently he was like this pin-up boy for all Asian girls, because it was unheard of to see an Asian guy, or a half Asian guy at least, being portrayed the way he was at that time. So I think that he could have gotten her to marry him if he wanted to, but Rufus isn't that guy. He's no dog. Okay. They decide that Rufus will take Martha to Greshambury, and they're going to cause some trouble. Okay. So then some drama back at Greshambury, right, while all of this is happening. Eden is hanging out with Bea at a local coffee shop, but she's been barred from the manor house because Arabella doesn't want her near Rufus. So Arabella goes ballistic when she sees the two of them together, and she starts screaming at Eden that she seduced Rufus, and now she's pregnant with Freddie's baby, and how Eden ruined her plan to set Rufus up with Celine so that she could have him all to herself. And Eden is like shocked, right? And she tells her that she doesn't know what she's talking about and she's not pregnant. So Arabella rounds on Beatrice and tells her that she needs to leave with her immediately, and if she doesn't, she will cut off her Couts account. Couts is a private banking service, by the way. I googled this. So to Bea's credit, she doesn't actually follow her mother. And then to top it off, some random person bumps into Arabella and spills iced coffee all over her very expensive blouse. So now she is completely incensed. And the problem is that even though it's not true, everyone heard what Arabella had to say, and it has consequences for Eden. So her work told her that she needs to take a leave of absence because it's too much drama for the hospital and people are obviously talking about her. So I really feel sorry for her. So when she goes home, she finds a gift from Freddie at her door. He's actually a really nice guy. He's very likable. So she gives him a call and he tells her to come out to Los Angeles to attend his sister engagement party. He'll send the plane. Jeez. So, I'm not that person, right? But I wouldn't mind having a friend who has like a private plane and just like sends it over so that I can meet them in Paris for the weekend. Their treat, obviously. So I don't know. So maybe I am that person. But for someone like Eden, LA doesn't agree with her. So cheaper houses in the area cost about $12 to $15 million, and people line up to buy about 10 of them, and then they rent them out for about $40,000 a month. Everywhere that Freddie eats is an exclusive place. And while they are at one of his exclusive clubs, who does Eden see but her father, sitting between a British pop star and a supermodel. Like he does this every day. Anyway, events unfold and Eden ends up joining her father and Freddie to visit Louis Philippe's house called Cloudline, where he has about $500 million worth of cars parked. And he can't drive them because he's got DUIs. So between him and his dad, though, they apparently own like 350 cars, and not just any cars, right? So like Louis has a Ferrari worth $60 million. His house also boasts a recording studio, a screening room, a video arcade, casino, spa, gym, shisha lounge, shooting range, a pickleball court, petting zoo, and of course the car museum. And remember, this guy's 23 years old and he lives here alone. The lifestyles that are described in this book are like so lavish and garish at the same time. I had like a hard time wrapping my head around it. And I think Eden does as well. So Louis has a space called the Artist's Loft in his house, right? Where he hosts an up-and-coming young artist for a month. And then he gets an exclusive artwork from them. So he has a different one staying there every month. So Louis' dad is also on the premises, Renee Tan, right? He was supposed to be transferred to the hospital, but when he found out that Dr. Thomas Tong's daughter was around, he insisted on meeting her. He asks Eden about her mother, who she informs him was a Canadian-born Chinese woman named Fei Wang. So it's at this point that I started getting an inkling about something. And Thomas also seemed like really keen to keep Eden away from Renee for some reason, and like he kind of reinforced my suspicions. I don't know if you're picking up what I'm putting down here. Anyway, Freddie then takes Eden to yet another exclusive place called Daddy Mustang, and he explains to her why it's so exclusive. The only way to get in is to hire a top publicist, put them on retainer for $8,000 a month, and once they've generated enough media hits for you and your Wikipedia page is at least 6 paragraphs long, and your social media accounts are all fully verified with throbbing blue check marks, and there are enough Googleable pictures of you at the Met Ball or the Vanity Fair Oscar party, your publicist may then dare to call a reservation number that's a more closely guarded secret than the president's phone line with all the nuclear codes. And if they actually pick up, which is rare, there's a fierce woman on the line who sounds just like Jamie Lee Curtis, who mans the daddy list. Because apparently every month they update this list of everyone on the planet who's cool enough to dine here. And your publicist simply has to say, I represent Eden Tong. And there will be a pause while pseudo Jamie Lee checks the daddy list. And if your name isn't already on it, you can't forget it. You're never getting in. But once you make the list, you're allowed the privilege of booking a table like 8 months from now. That was one sentence, just by the way. It's like Freddie is so cute. I don't know if this place really exists, right? You can Google it, but there actually isn't any information available. Maybe that's deliberate. Anyway, his sister Daniela has finally made the list, and they're now able to go in as her guests. So Daniela and Eden end up outside the club, and the host won't allow them back in because he says that they upset someone important inside and they were displaying offensive behavior. So it's at this point, though, that Louis Philippe shows up with 2 models and a couple of bodyguards. Louis Philippe insists to the hosts that they all be let in, including Eden, to whom he seemed to have taken a liking, and Daniela. When the host refuses, he tells the bodyguard to, make him see reason, and the bodyguard, takes him down, pretty brutally. Then the manager comes rushing out, and he sees Louis Philippe there, and he allows him in, and he gives him the chef's table that he demands. So Eden doesn't want to go in with him, but Daniela insists, saying that Freddie is still inside, and, if they go in, Eden can check on the host who got beaten up. So it's a horrible story, but it's not unbelievable. Daniela even tells her that this is not even the worst thing that she's seen. It's just that there are people who are so entitled out there that they refuse to be denied anything, and they know that eventually someone will cater to their whims and desires because they've got enough money to buy whatever they want. Even you. So Eden and Louis have a conversation inside the restaurant, and this is how it goes. So he asks her, what do you think? Of what? Of the food. It's rather good. That's it. This is the hottest restaurant in America right now, and you think it's rather good? Well, to be honest, the pasta's overcooked and the sauce is a bit heavy for my taste. Want me to have the chef's kneecaps broken? That's not funny. Geez, lighten up. I was just kidding. It might have been funnier if I hadn't witnessed your bodyguard beat up that host. That ass-face needed to be taught a lesson. He disrespected us. I think you and I might have different ideas about respect. He treated us the way he did because we're both Asian. If we had been white, he wouldn't have dared treat us that way. What are you talking about? He was rude to everyone. He was rude to Daniela first. My point exactly. She's Persian and he treated her like a carpet he could piss all over. You live in England, right? I do. Most racist country I've ever been to, and all the Brits at my boarding school in Switzerland thought they farted sunshine. I'm guessing it was a very posh school. Things are different these days. We've got our problems, but for the most part, it's easier nowadays to be accepted. Accepted is different from respected. I spent time in England myself. I own a penthouse in Knightsbridge and a golf club I've never even been to. I can tell you the Brits have zero respect for Asians. If you're not white and Anglo, you'll always be a foreigner to them. Remember, for 400 years, they were our colonizers and we were their slaves. So it's time we taught them a lesson. By having some poor chap roughed up by your bodyguards? Nah, most of the time I just whack him with my big fat wad of cash. I wonder what your father might think of that. My father was the one who taught me all this. You think he's some saint just because he's got cancer now? Ha! Did you know he grew up in Hong Kong where he was shit on daily by the Brits? Then he moved to the Philippines and built one of the biggest fortunes in the world. Only Filipinos treated him decently. He taught me the most important lesson of all. Everyone has a price. That's the most important lesson he taught you? Yes. Anyone can be bought, sold, and controlled. I see. What are you doing after dinner? Going home. No, you're not. I'm having a huge party tonight and it's going to be epic. You're coming back to my house. I don't think so. I'll give you $1 million to come back to my house tonight. Eden rolls her eyes. 2 million. I'm not playing your game. It's not a game. The booze and whatever else you're on are clearly impairing your judgment. Hey, I'm as baked as banana bread, but I'm not drunk. Can't you tell the difference, Dr. No? I'm dead serious. I will write you a check right now for $2 million if you come home with me tonight. I'm not a Murakami painting. $3 million. Good night. Eden folds her napkin, places it on the table, and gets up as everyone stares at her. You think you're too good for my money? Give it all to charity if you're Mother Teresa. You could just do that yourself. Try Doctors Without Borders. Are you really going to deprive Doctors Without Borders of $3 million in order to satisfy your ego and prove me wrong? Think how much you could do for them just by coming to my party. You know, instead of throwing a party or throwing your money around, maybe you ought to think about spending time with your father. All he wants to do is spend time with you. He really doesn't have much longer, and I guarantee you all the money in the world will never bring him back. Whoa, right? I mean, geez, this guy has some ego on him. He's got a lot of issues, right? And they obviously all stem from his father. Do you think that Eden is a little bit holier than thou? Because I kind of do sometimes. Like, she comes across as almost too level-headed. Like, she is too nice. I don't know, maybe it's because of the work that she does, like working as a doctor for the British NHS. She obviously sees like a lot of struggling people. And then to see people throwing around money must be very frustrating for her, because she's obviously like thinking of all the medical equipment and extra stuff that she could get with that money that they waste on a single dinner. And I can understand that, because I also worked in a government health facility. And sometimes when you see people throwing money away, it is upsetting because we have so many needy people in this country. But I feel like she's just like not swayed by anything, you know. We could be setting up feeding schemes, I guess, you know, homeless shelters, better educational facilities for kids. But no, people have to live their best Insta lives. So who cares, right? But that said, I think that if someone was bestowing fortunes and tremendous, unimaginable luxuries upon you, it would be difficult to say no, wouldn't it? I don't know. It's never happened to me. I would love for it to happen so that I can find out what kind of person I am. But I'd like to think that I donate the money or do something good with it. So, like, let me stick with that lovely opinion of myself. It's like confessions of a 40-something fuck up, right? Is that when you reach like a certain age, you realize that you think a lot of different things. You have a lot of different feelings about a lot of different things. Like, you feel different ways about the same issue, and that's just how it is. Anyway, after Eden leaves Daddy Mustang, she heads over to Cloudline, where it really seems as though Renee Tan is not going to make it through the night. He sees her, much to Thomas's shock, and he grabs her hand and he starts sobbing the name Mary and asking Mary to please forgive him. So Eden gently tells him that she isn't Mary, she's Eden. And he calms down and he looks at her and he tells her that she looks like a beauty queen. And then he asks her if she would call him Uncle Renee and to please be nice to his son. Are you now picking up what I'm putting down? Have the lights turned on? Are 2 and 2 adding up to 4? If they're not, then you really need to pay attention. So there was a beautiful lady named Mary Gow who experienced a terrible trauma at the beginning of the book. Supposedly, she went to Australia to abort her unborn child to spare her family the shame of having an unwed mother in the house. But after some time, the family was informed that she'd passed away due to complications with the abortion. Such a shame. She was Miss Hong Kong once as well. Poor Mary. Renee had a sister named Mary, who he misses so much. She died, you see. And as he closes his eyes one final time, he asks Thomas to play his sister's favorite song, featuring the actress Faye Wong. And he was gone. So we're back to Rufus now, who's taken Martha Dung home to Greshambury Manor. And Arabella simply loves her because she was having yet another heart attack. And Martha made her some boiled soup, which is like this traditional medicinal brew usually made for one's elders. So Arabella is like really distressed because after arriving home and hearing about what happened between Eden and his mother, Rufus has rushed off to LA because he has a feeling that Eden might need him. Sweet. In fact, after hearing about Uncle Rene's death and attending I don't even know what you'd call it, right, that Louis Philippe hosted, where there were tacos, tequila, and toads. Yes, toads. Apparently, their glands secrete some kind of toxin, and if you lick them, it has a hallucinogenic effect, provided that you don't ingest too much, of course. So anyway, when the toads come out, Eden leaves. And she's surprised but happy to see Rufus waiting for her outside Freddy's mansion. Now, the big thing is the matter of Rene's will, right? So remember, he was worth like about 90 billion American dollars, and Louis Philippe is his only child. But because of Louis' issues with addiction, he's placed all of the assets in a trust to be administered by a board of trustees, and Thomas Tong is in charge. And it stipulates that Louis Philippe will receive a monthly allowance, the amount of which will be decided by the board. So they've agreed on $250,000 a day. Louis Philippe asks, "No, per month," replies the lawyer, to which Louis Philippe is incensed, saying he can't even buy a decent watch with that amount of money. So dude is super angry and he goes off to assemble his own team of lawyers to fight this. Interestingly, the only thing that was not part of the trust is the debt owed by the Greshams, which was very dangerous because Louis could call in that debt and essentially render them homeless, which is exactly what he intends to do to get some cash in hand. He would also then own Gresham Manor, right? So before he can do this, the guy ODs and he doesn't make it. Actually, I felt kind of sorry for him though. You know, he was a very troubled person. Anyway, so the shocking, or maybe not so shocking thing, is that the next person in line to inherit all of Rene Tan's estate is none other than Miss Dr. Eden Tong. Why, you ask? Because Eden Tong is really the daughter of Miss Mary Gao, the sister of Roger Gao, aka Rene Tan. When Roger was incarcerated for the murder of Henry Tong, Thomas's brother, he was imprisoned with a Filipino man named Enrique Tan. After they were released, Roger went with Enrique to the Philippines and he became his right-hand man, where he became like enormously wealthy in his own right. Roger renamed himself Rene, which comes from the word reborn in Latin, and he took the name of Tan in order to honor Enrique, who gave him a new life. So Enrique left his fortune to Rene when he died, and Rene expanded the business and he grew it exponentially. So Rene Tan was Eden's biological uncle from her mother's side, as was Thomas Tong, the man she knew as her father all her life, the brother of her biological father, Henry Tong. So remember, Henry was the guy who died at the beginning. He was Thomas Tong's younger brother. Whew. So this means that Eden is now the debtor of the Gresham's loans, and she has the ability to throw them out of Gresham Manor if she so wishes. But of course, Eden is too nice for that, and she allows the Greshams to keep their home. So Arabella enters at this point while Eden is talking to Francis and explaining the situation to him, and this is what happens. "Mother, when did you get here?" B gasped. "I'm not really here. I'm only here because Rufus said he had urgent news to share," Arabella said as she glared coldly at B and Gopal Das. She turned to see Martha and Rufus standing next to each other holding champagne flutes, and her heart began to flutter excitedly. "Does this mean what I think it means? Rufus, have you finally come to your senses and asked this lovely lady to be your wife?" Arabella inquired, smiling at Martha. The room went dead silent as everyone awkwardly looked at Eden. Francis walked over to his wife with a big grin on his face. "You don't have to worry anymore about anything, my love. We shan't be evicted from Greshambury Hall. Ever." "How can you be so sure of that?" Arabella shot back. "I heard it from our new landlady, darling. She's standing right here," Francis said as he raised his glass to Eden. "Have you gone mad?" Arabella scoffed. "Yes, mad with joy," Francis said. Augie walked gingerly to her mother and thrust her phone in her face. On the screen was a photo of Eden accompanying a headline from the Daily Mail. "Greshamsbury doctor inherits Rene Tan's gazillions." Arabella stared at the screen, her eyes bulging out before suddenly rolling back in her head as she fainted to the floor with a thud. "Mary, Mother of God!" Francis exclaimed. "She's cracked her skull!" B cried. Without thinking, Eden rushed to Arabella's side and examined her head. "All good, she's fine. Thank God for yoga mats." Thomas turned to Martha. "Might you have an ice pack or some frozen peas?" Arabella regained consciousness as Eden crouched over her. "Arabella, Can you hear me? Do you know where you are? Yes, you must, Arabella groaned, murmuring indistinctly. I'm sorry, what's that you said? Eden said, leaning closer. I said, you must marry my son. Eden is now the right kind of Asian because she has money. I love it. Anyway, so I've given you like the main plot points here. And if you want to find out who it was who's really pregnant, you'll have to read the book. So as fun as this book was at times, because it wasn't actually all lighthearted, hey, I don't know that I would pick up one of Kwan's books again in a hurry. This particular one, Lies and Weddings, won the Goodreads Choice Award for Reader's Favorite Romance last year, 2024. But it's not the kind of thing that I'm going to read on a regular basis. It's quite averagely rated on Goodreads as well, 3.76. I gave it a 3. But his books seem really great fodder for movies, and I can understand why. I've watched Crazy Rich Asians twice, and I watch it again. And I'd rather watch a movie adaptation of this book than read the book, because I feel like his descriptions of designer fashion and designer furniture is something that would actually work better in a visual medium. Like he mentions these designers' names and the pieces of furniture or outfits, and like I have no idea what these things look like, so you would have to like Google pretty much everything. And some of his other books are apparently being adapted for the silver screen, at least 2 of them, because Crazy Rich Asians is apparently like part of a trilogy. And I will watch them. Because Asians are very underrepresented in Hollywood. But my issue with this book, right, is that the characters of Rufus and Eden reminded me too much of the main characters from Crazy Rich Asians. And the story was like, it's superficial, right? I mean, it is. I'm sorry, but it is. So also like a lot of the drama I felt was there just for the sake of drama, and the story could have honestly gone on without it. I feel like even if Arabella didn't necessarily have her meltdown, the same thing would have happened, because Eden would have gotten the gift from Freddie anyway, and she would have still gone to LA. So I felt like it wasn't even necessary. So for me, I would have rather read the story of Mary Gow, who had to like hide her illegitimate daughter, or even the story of Arabella after she married Francis and then had to overcome the racism that she faced, or Louis Philippe growing up in the difficult childhood that he had. So, you can see where I'm going here, yeah? These stories have more substance to them. If you've read this book, though, let me know what you think. And let me know if you want to read it. You can hit me up on social media. I am Raz the Reader on Instagram, Books and Mortar on on TikTok. Or you can send me an email. I am booksandmortar2024@gmail.com. That is the end of this episode, my lovelies. And until next time, this was Books and Mortar with me, your host, Rizia, where we talk about the books that build us.